Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, we'll show you how the 5 temporary swift justice courts are progressing.
The Bar Association peeved at the decision to remove stenographers from the magistrate's court. We got that story coming up.
And hear what a top banker has to say about a lending agency. The Bahamas Tonight starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Delay, but those 5 temporary swift justice courts are getting around-the-clock attention in order to begin operation within the next 6 weeks. Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Andrew Knowles. Thanks so much for joining us. Yesterday evening, government leaders toured the facilities to assess the progress. And tonight, our Jiminita Swain has the Prime Minister's reaction to what he saw during a tour of the premises.
When added to the current amount of courts, how many criminal courts will be in existence at the same time?
That was the first question from the nation's chief after he toured the progress of work on the old police prosecutions building in Bank Lane, which has been completely redesigned to accommodate 5 new courts. But in answering the Prime Minister's question, Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson said there will be close to a dozen courts up and running.
The Chief Justice has graciously agreed that we can have 10 criminal courts. I'm not sure that they will all run on April 2nd, but certainly we expect that by the end of the year they will be running. These are going to be modern courts with all of the 21st century internet access, video conferencing capability. Photographs will be digitally projected on the walls. Our access to the juries will all be in a modern method.
Prime Minister Christie, along with the Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis, the Attorney General, and Minister of State for Legal Affairs Damian Gomez, toured the courts one by one with the architect and project designers to get a close-up of how the once considered dump house had been modernized. The net result of the new courts, Mr. Christie said, is that it will strengthen the system of justice in the country.
To bring people to trial in a reasonable period of time, and therefore rather than languishing or courts having to cause them to be admitted to bail, and the implications of that is that some of them commit serious crimes when they're out on bail or are charged with serious crimes when they're out on bail, and it confuses the justice system. And we want to be able to bring some resolution to the contradictions that exist.
Mr. Christie said he looks forward to justice being done and justice being seen to be done.
This whole question of bail will no longer be pose the kind of challenges to the justice system that it now poses. And so for me, I'm looking forward to whether it's April or even May. But the fact of the matter is, it is clear to everyone that we are committed to a process that will bring about swift justice in its fullest way. And this is what it's all about.
The project is still on budget despite the hiccups, and the Attorney General anticipates the courts will be open by April. Jiminita Swain, ZNS Network News.
Still on the court system, the removal of stenographers from the magistrate's court is causing a rift in the legal fraternity, prompting the Bahamas Bar Association to launch an all-out protest today. Candino Knowles reports tonight on why the BBA is upset about the decision and what the Attorney General has to say about it.
I can say to you without fear of contradiction that every member that stands or sit here today supports the judiciary 110%.
That said, Bar Association President Ellsworth Johnson says the BBA is on edge about recent changes to the judiciary, which the group feels will adversely affect the legal system.
What this committee is concerned about is that some critical issues or technical support that should be available to the judiciary, they're not there.
What he's talking about is the recent removal of court reporters from the magistrate's court, leaving magistrates to keep their own records, something the BBA says represents a retrograde step in the administration and delivery of justice.
We have done some research, and we've found that in jurisdictions where the court reporters have been removed, it's created some serious difficulties in terms of understanding the legibility of the magistrate's hands.
You have multiple cases in magistrates' court on a daily basis. It's not like the Supreme Court where you go there and you have one case, you start from beginning to end. And some magistrates may have as much as 30 cases for the day.
But Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson insists the move is necessary in order to take the country's judiciary into the 21st century.
To do that, we are not reinventing the wheel. We have the assistance of the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB, to advise us on how to do it so that the unit that is created meets the highest international standards. The IDB has advised that we ought to deploy all of the court reporters to the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. This will enable proper scheduling and timely returning of transcripts.
Also, as part of the improvements to the court system, government plans to digitize the court record. But the Bar Association is expressing concern about how that will impact the integrity of the process.
I think where we are today is we want to see those persons in court taking those notes.
Now, the Bar Association is expected to meet with the Attorney General on Monday at 5 p.m. And depending on the outcome of that meeting, the Bar Association says it could very well boycott court proceedings. Kendino Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Prime Minister Perry Christie says he is concerned about banking in the country, but is allaying fears that the sector is in trouble. He says while the Bank of the Bahamas suffered a loss last year, it wasn't the only bank in that category. He maintains the government is 100% committed to the Bank of the Bahamas. But as for other commercial banks experiencing some challenges, in particular CIBC First Caribbean, which is cutting more than 60 jobs locally, Mr. Christie says his government is focused on ensuring the climate is such that people can be re-employed.
Meetings with First Caribbean, we've had notice and meetings with Royal Bank of Canada and discussing the future of banking in the Bahamas. They have assured us that we have a very bright future, that they're going through consolidations, they're going through introducing greater degrees of efficiency, and we have to accept. What we have asked them to do is to ensure that they keep the government informed, they keep the trade unions informed as to who represent the financial services sector, so that we can all be on the same page to ensure that we minimize the impact, so to speak, of those people who will lose their jobs. I was happy to learn that a significant number of people were volunteering and getting the packages, but there will be some people who do not volunteer who lose their jobs, and it is for us to create an environment that will enable them to get a job.
Well, it's the only Bahamian commercial bank with all of its operations in the Bahamas, and it's not predicting any layoffs at this time. In fact, last year, Commonwealth Bank posted impressive profits. The president of the bank sat down with our Clint Watson to discuss key issues facing not only the bank, but the financial sector.
Commonwealth Bank made $51 million last year. President of the bank, Ian Jennings, says compared to 2012, it was quite successful, bouncing back to the same kind of levels during the pre-recessionary period. Their focus was on improving delinquent accounts, but a major component of customer confidence is the one advantage they have over other large commercial banks. They are solely in the Bahamas with no foreign office or decision makers, and all of their profits remain in the local market.
If we decide to restructure, we move staff from one end of the island to the other, so those jobs are still within the Bahamas. They don't get moved outside that you would do in a multinational organization. I think it also helps that not only are we a Bahamian organization, we have no staff with work permits on staff, so we're very much used to the local environment and the local culture and the local needs. I mean, we are our customers. So I think that we do have a lot of affinity with them, and really our history has been that we've been able to better serve their needs.
Jennings predicts marginal growth, and that's good considering the challenges that 2014 can present with new requirements for compliance and account opening, plus increased and new taxes like value-added tax.
As you may be aware, the banks are exempt, which means that as the regulations and law currently stands, or the draft law stands, the banks will not be passing on the VAT that they're charged, so we are facing additional increases in costs. Our estimate at the moment, based on our knowledge of the regulations as drafted, is between 4 and 5 million in a full year, and that is coming on top of the increase in business license fees that were put in force in the last budget, and we just paid almost an additional $5 million in business license fees that we didn't have to pay last year. So in a full year, we're talking almost $10 million in additional cost.
The bank executive expressed concern about an unregulated gaming industry. He says Bahamians are already in debt to other creditors.
Those funds are not legal funds, so they're not being accepted into the banking system. And certainly with some of the numbers that have been talked about lately within the press, they're very significant numbers. And obviously with regard to the governor's comments that when you create that sort of money, or that size of funds moving around the economy in an unregulated environment, it does open concerns for the channels that it goes through, how it gets into the economy.
Jennings is optimistic about investments forecasted by the Prime Minister to come on stream, creating not only new business, but new jobs for Bahamians. Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
Well, still ahead, top prizes for some of the best in the hospitality industry. We have the highlights from the Crystal Awards.
And some of our viewers got a special treat last week. Meet the 4 who watched and won. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
The news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.